Hi everybody, Emily here for Scrap Academy. So this week's theme is all about using your inks and your stamps. And years ago when I was during my first bout of scrapbooking, I had started that thing of using only stamps to create my layout, and I thought that would be the right way to go with this theme this week. And I want to show you how you can create your own pattern papers, your own embellishment, everything really. I fully created this layout with only stamps. So my first tip is always to use a big stamp. So like here I've used a doily stamp, and you repeat that pattern over the background. You can use also a smaller stamp and just repeat, but use a lighter color. We don't want to have a background that's too overwhelming. You just want to create something that you would naturally use if it was simply printed. And if you have a big selection of stamps at home, I challenge you to actually look at if you could reproduce some pattern papers that are currently on the market, but reproduce it or get as close as possible to it with your own stamp. For this layout, I inspired myself from the Marigold collection by Create Paper and Maggie Holmes. I used the same colours. I had that collection in front of me anyway, because I've got a pegboard on my wall, and I had that collection in front of my eyes, and I think that's probably why I went down that road with this layout. But I used entirely stamps from Les Ateliers de Karine, which is a French brand, and she creates really stunning stamps. I'm on their design team. I'm very fortunate with that, and the stamp quality is amazing. So here, as you can see, I repeated the doily on the background, and then I blended some distress ink around the edges. I used a sponge that was already coloured, so that to create a bit of different shades. I think the sponge probably had some sort of mahogany or tea dye on it before I used the pink on it, and that helped to give the paper a little bit more depth and a little bit more spectrum of colours. Now I went on and repeat the doily as well, slightly off. As you can see, you can still see the doily in pink, so I was slightly off the pink doily, but I went in there with some mustard ink. And the reason why I did that is simply because sometimes a good pattern paper that you can use for your background has different colours. So now I'm going with the pattern paper that we would use extra for my photos or anything like that. So I cut my sheet of paper in half and didn't prime it with gesso. I just went in there with some Lindy's Gang powders that was part of my September hip kit, and I just painted my paper. I wanted to keep that paintbrush on the background and several effects just to give that paper a bit of texture. Otherwise I would have just used some blue cardstock, but I wanted to show you that with different inks and with different mixed media effects, because at the end of the day it's mixed media term, you can really create your own pattern papers. So I wasn't too sure which blue to use for my image. I laid my stamps, several stamps on my acrylic black, just simply because it saved me time than just stamp repeatedly. I just have to stamp once for 3 stamps. So I tried different inks, and I decided to go with, again, the Distress ink in Blue Jeans. I think that's the name of it. That was the blue that was the closest to what I was going for, and then I just repeat the design. I'm going to fast forward you through it. I'm not going to let you sit through the whole stamping process, but pretty much, it's just you repeat the design, and at first it looks odd. It's hard to be confident as to what you're fully doing with your design, but you'll get there. once it's filled up, you'll see it just makes sense. I am now working some distressing around the edges, distressing a little bit of the paper. It's just to still add some depth to the paper, because at the end of the day we are creating a pattern paper and we want to have something that it's pretty, something that you would want to buy. I am now going with simply black and white pattern, and same again, completely inspired by the Marigold collection, which had some big roses in black and white, and I really liked that paper, and I thought I would use those stamps, which I just find this paper, this pattern, just gorgeous. I completely fell in love with what that paper looked like, and I just added a little bit of sprinkles of Indian ink to it. Same again, reproducing that Maggie Holmes paper. So these are the 3 pattern paper that I created. I'm now looking at creating some embellishment to add to my layout, and one other thing I wanted to do is to bring a little bit of that foiled look that is so fashionable at the moment. So I used a brassed colour embossing powder, so that metallic kind of colour, and then I went to stamp as well onto some vellum. I love the effect of embossed vellum. I think it's beautiful. It really gives it that look of the fancy vellums that you can buy, which is quite pricey, when in reality you can just get that effect completely by just embossing it. You can buy some tracing paper vellum and use a nice gorgeous background stamp and emboss it with some metallic embossing powder or white or coloured or whatever. It just gives you that look of the specialist paper, which is quite expensive. So yeah, playing with stamps and all that, it just gives you the look for a fraction of the price, as long as you already have the stamps. I've printed my photo and I decided to go with a black and white photo for this layout. I think it's always better, especially when you're creating your own papers and you might have a bit of a doubt as to what it's going to look like, or even if you don't have a photo that much with your pattern paper, just go for black and white. Just turn your photo black and white, and like that you're certain 100% sure that it's going to work. So that's what I did there. I didn't have a photo that had those autumnal colours, and I thought I wanted to turn it black and white. I knew I wanted to use a photo of Sophia and May together because I had seen a stamp I wanted to use which had that word about cuddles, and so I wanted the two of us together on that photo, and I didn't have a photo that matched the colours, so black and white straight away, and like that I could use that photo on this layout without it clashing. So that's one of the great tips. If your photo that you want to use doesn't match your paper, turn it black and white and you're fine, you can use it. So I've mounted my photo onto that blue paper. I have fussy cut the embossed vellum, and now I am colouring in the leftover bit of that white paper. So same again, something you can easily do with a pattern paper that you've bought already made. I decided that I had cut out some of the flowers that I wanted to use, so now I'm just colouring it in, and that's a way for me to use that paper again. I mean, at the end of the day, this layout only took really 2 sheets of cardstock to create and a little bit of vellum. It's, to be honest, you can't beat that from an amount of paper point of view. It's just, yeah, it's really economical in that way, and it's a great way to use up your stamps, dust them off, and make them work for you, because at the end of the day you bought them, and it's silly to leave them in a corner, because that's what I've noticed sometimes is we get stamps and we'll use them on a couple of project cards or whatever, and then they get forgotten in a bag. So it's a good way to dust them off and use them again. So I wanted to have that strong mentality of what would I do if I had bought that pattern paper? What if it was not created? Because we tend to get then too precious if we've created that paper. So I just completely took it out of my mind that I created that paper. I just went with it with the frame of mind of, this is a pattern paper, how am I going to use it? So here is where really I start my layout. So I decided to use mixed media on it and use a little bit of gesso. I love how the ink, because it was water-based ink, I love how the ink came through a little bit, the gesso, and it gives a really, really nice effect, still while toning it down a little bit. I am now layering my pattern papers, my vellum, and just creating textures, creating details, and I just go about it as if it was pattern paper that I had just bought, that was part of a kit or something. You've created your papers and now you're just playing with them. Nothing stops you to create your papers and use them in 3 years' time. It's all about having a complete control over your project from start to finish, because you have created everything about it. And what's more satisfying than that? You don't depend on another designer creating that paper for you. You don't need, it's just it's a great process. I think it's a really fantastic process to get exactly what you want. So now we're at the point where normally I would dig into some ephemeras, and I'm creating my own ephemeras. So I use different stamps onto white cardstock because I wanted to bring back that white from the flowers, that black and white paper. And I'm simply stamping, and then I'm going to fussy cut. I'm really sorry I'm a bit off camera. For some reason I didn't aim my camera properly on while filming, so I've cut off the part where I was fussy cutting because it was completely off screen, and it's no point of you just sitting there and seeing nothing while I fussy cut. So there we have the fake ephemeras that I've cut off, and now I'm placing it around my layout. It's created my title with it, which is that love, etc. And I've got authentical words. I've got good for a cuddle. So it's just making it work with the story, making it work as well with the colors of my layout, and just finish it off with those little added details. I wanted to bring back a little bit of that blue paper and a little bit of that mustardy flowery paper. So I tore a few scratches of it, added a little bit of vellum. So I'm repeating that layering that I have on my photos onto the left corner of my layout. It's something that I like to do very often on my layouts, and I think it really balances the whole look of it. I'm also adding my journaling, so same again, I'm going about it as if it was a layout. I just forget the fact that those papers are stamped, and I just go about it as I would do on any layout, and I just stamp my journaling as I always do. I'm adding a few Nuvo drops in black, just for that little extra element, and there you have it. Here's a layout from start to finish, 100% stamps, apart from the Nuvo drops obviously, but yeah, entirely created with stamps. And I hope you enjoyed that process video. I hope it inspires you to dust off your stamp and try it out, because it's a great mixed media technique, and it's just super exciting to create your own papers. So there you have it. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.